The morning sun was barely cutting through the thick haze hovering over what used to be the old textile mill in the outskirts of Monroe County. Dust, debris, and the sharp echo of steel clanging filled the air. The demolition crew was prepping the charges. Today, the abandoned building that had stood for almost a century would be flattened in minutes. Eddie, early 40s, thick beard, heavy boots, and zero patience, was walking briskly along the perimeter with a cigarette hanging from his lips. "Yo, Tyler," he shouted over the rumble of a nearby truck. Tyler, a lanky guy in his 30s with a bad attitude and mirrored sunglasses, looked up from his clipboard. "What? I swear I just saw something move in there," Eddie said, pointing toward the far east wing of the building. "Might have been a dog. Big one. Looked like a shepherd." Tyler scoffed and shook his head. "Seriously? You think a damn dog is still in there? Ain't nobody been inside that dump for months." Eddie hesitated. "Yeah, but it looked like he was limping. Might be trapped or something. We should." Tyler cut him off, laughing like it was the funniest thing he'd heard all week. You kidding me? We're on a tight clock. Here, man. You want to call off a $200,000 demolition 'cause Lassie might be having a nap inside." Another crew member, Mike, heavy-set chewing sunflower seeds, chimed in with a chuckle. "Maybe the damn mutt's trying to reclaim his ancestral ruins, German shepherd heritage or something." They all laughed. Eddie didn't. "Look, man, I got a dog at home. I can't just pretend I didn't see it." Tyler sighed, dragging a hand down his face. "All right, Saint Eddie. Go ahead. Be the hero. You got 5 minutes. After that, I'm blowing the charges." But Mike leaned against the truck with a smirk. "Nah, let him bark. His last bark. Think of it like, I don't know, a Viking funeral." Tyler grinned. "Yeah, a real warrior's end. Glory." Eddie clenched his jaw. He looked toward the building. No sound, no movement. Maybe he imagined it. But then, a faint whimper, so soft, like it was coming from deep underground. A muffled cry, desperate, hurting. Eddie turned back toward the group. "Did you hear that? That was real. That was a dog, man." Tyler put up his hands, mocking. "Oh, no, the dog is crying. Stop the world, dude. What the hell is wrong with you?" Eddie snapped, but it was too late. The countdown had begun. "Charge is set," said one of the texts. "We're going 5. Eddie ran toward the building entrance. But Tyler grabbed his vest. "You're not going in there. It's done. You said it yourself. Might be a dog, or it might just be the wind playing tricks with your head." Eddie stared at the crumbling facade. It wasn't the wind. He knew what he heard. For Mike lit another cigarette. "Too late now. Bye-bye, buddy. Hope that mutt had a good life." 3. Tyler leaned in with a grin that twisted Eddie's stomach. "You're really going to cry over a flea bag? Get a grip, man. It's just a damn dog." "Ooh," Eddie muttered under his breath. "Not just a duck." But no one was listening. A thunderous boom ripped the air. The east wing of the building imploded like a dying beast. Dust shot into the sky, like smoke signals of defeat. The ground shook as concrete fell over steel and splintered wood. The sound was deafening, and just like that, it was gone. Silence followed. Not a peaceful silence, but one that felt heavy, like it was choking on regret. Eddie didn't move. His fists were clenched, his jaw tight, and though no one else noticed, he swore. He could still hear it. That soft cry, still buried, still alive. The dust hadn't even fully settled before. Tyler tossed his helmet into the truck bed and clapped his hands like a man who'd just taken care of business. "That's that," he said with satisfaction, brushing off his vest. "Clean work." Mike leaned back against the hood, squinting at the cloud of rubble. "Ain't going to lie, and that drop was kind of beautiful." Eddie didn't say a word. He was still looking at the pile like it might somehow speak back. Tyler noticed, rolled his eyes. "Oh, come on, man. You still on that dog?" Eddie gave him a look. "I told you." "I heard him." "I heard what?" Mike chuckled. "Ghost barks." Tyler waved his hand like he was done with the conversation. "Even if there was a dog, it's over now. What do you want to do? Dig up half a building for a mutt that didn't know how to find the damn door?" There was a pause. Then Tyler added with a grin. "Besides, you think anybody's going to sue us for not saving a dog? What we going to jail now for? Manslaughter of a canine?" Mike burst out, laughing. "Dog slaughter, bro. Hardened criminals now." Tyler threw an arm around Mike's shoulders and mind. "Handcuffs. You have the right to remain barking. Anything you whine can and will be used against you." They laughed too loud, too long. Eddie turned his back to them and walked away. Not because he was afraid, but because he was ashamed to stand next to them. Half a mile down the road, a retired Marine named Franklin Frank Rodas was walking hand in hand with his grandson, Caleb. Frank was 69, but his posture was still stiff with discipline, hair white as chalk, face weathered like dried leather, but his eyes sharp, still scouting, always scanning. Caleb, all of 4 years old, was wearing his favorite blue hoodie and dragging a little plastic dinosaur behind him on a string. "Grandpa," he asked, peering up, "why is that building all smushed?" Frank stopped. The demolition was fresh, rebar sticking out like broken ribs, smoke still ghosting up into the blue. He knelt beside Caleb. "That, buddy," he said, voice low and thoughtful, "used to be a textile mill. My unit used to march past it every week for training. Back when I was stationed at Camp Hill." "You were a soldier there." Frank smiled gently. "Marine. That's right. We trained hard, son. Real hard. We ran drills in the rain, carried gear up those hills you can't even see behind the trees anymore." Caleb looked wide-eyed. "Was it scary?" Frank hesitated. "Yeah, sometimes it was. But being scared doesn't make you weak. It means you're paying attention." Caleb nodded like he understood and picked up a rock. Frank looked back at the rubble. His eyes narrowed slightly. "You see this?" he said, pointing to the building. "That building taught me a lot." "Like what?" He thought a moment, then said, "It taught me that not everything strong stays standing forever, and not everything buried is dead." Caleb blinked. "What's that mean?" Frank smiled. "It means sometimes the things that matter most are the ones you almost walk right past." Just then the wind shifted, and for a second it carried something unexpected. A sound so soft it could have been imagined. But Frank's hearing, though not what it once was, still knew pain when it heard it. A high-pitched whine. Then again, louder. Not a bark. Not a growl, a cry. Long trembling. Broken. It didn't sound like an animal making noise. It sounded like an animal saying goodbye. Frank stood up slowly. His body tensed like a wire. Did you hear that? Caleb was quiet then. He nodded. That was a puppy. Frank looked toward the wreckage. It couldn't be, could it? Another cry, longer this time. Choked. Frank took a step forward. Then another. Caleb followed close behind, still dragging his dinosaur. Frank froze. That sound, that broken sobbing cry, it pulled at something deep inside him. Not just memory, muscle memory. The instinct that used to wake him up at 3 a.m. with sweat in his chest and a scream stuck in his throat. He was no longer standing in front of an old textile mill. He was back in the mountains of Kandahar under fire, hearing a buddy scream under a collapsed roof. His name was Miraculous, 23, smelled like cheap aftershave and always carried extra socks. They dug for 2 hours with bare hands until they found him, crushed from the waist down, whispering, "Don't let me die here, Sarge." Frank had carried that voice with him for decades. Now it echoed again, only this time it had fur. Caleb tugged at his hand. "Grandpa, what do we do?" Frank blinked hard. The sound came again. He clenched his jaw, looked at the rubble. "I think someone needs help," he said finally. "Like in the war?" Frank nodded slowly. "Yeah, just like that." "Should we call somebody?" He thought about it fast. Efficient. Safe. But something inside him, something stubborn and old and deeply marine, shook its head. "No," he said, dropping his backpack. "We'll handle this." Caleb tilted his head. "But it's big." "I know," Frank said. Then he crouched to his grandson's level. "But every big mission starts with one small step. You understand?" Caleb nodded, solemnly. "Like a game." Frank smiled, gently. "Like a promise?" Frank took off his jacket, rolled up his sleeves, and started clearing the smaller debris. Metal shards, wood, stone chunks. He worked like a man, trying to outrun his own heartbeat. Caleb stood close, watching wide-eyed. He wanted to help, but Frank didn't want his tiny hands near rebar and nails. "Here," Frank said, handing him a chunk of rock. "You take these little guys and stack them over there. Make a mountain." "A mission mountain?" "Exactly." Every time Caleb brought over a rock, Frank grunted like it was a huge contribution. "Whoa, look at you. That one's a general." Caleb giggled and saluted the rock before tossing it into the pile. Frank dug deeper. The closer he got to the sound, the slower time seemed to move. And the smell, concrete, rust, something like copper, thickened in the air. He reached a layer of bent steel bars and peeled them back with a crowbar he found nearby. The whimpers grew louder. Then finally, a patch of fur smeared with dust, caked in dry blood, barely moving. Frank's breath caught in his throat. "Easy now," he whispered, kneeling down. "It's okay, boy. I got you." He reached under the beam, careful not to startle the animal. The dog flinched, but didn't growl, didn't bark, just looked at him with those huge, wet, broken eyes. A German shepherd, male, mid-size, right paw twisted, side torn, muzzle gray from stress and age. He wasn't trying to fight. He was asking for permission to let go. "Oh no, buddy," Frank whispered, voice cracking. "You're not done yet." Caleb appeared at his side, clutching a small water bottle. "Can I give him a drink?" he asked. Frank opened the cap and poured a few drops into his palm. Let the dog lick weakly from it. "You see that?" Frank said softly. "That's trust. That's how you save somebody." Caleb's eyes were full of light. "He likes you. I think he likes us." The next 20 minutes were brutal. Frank moved the last beams with every ounce of strength left in his back and knees. He talked the whole time, half to Caleb, half to himself. "Pain is just the text for doing something good," he said, heaving a concrete block. "Sometimes you don't wait for backup. You are the backup. You don't walk away from a cry for help, not even if it hurts." Caleb didn't always respond, but he listened, really listened, and that's what mattered. Frank finally freed the last chunk, covering the shepherd's back legs. The dog whimpered louder, but tried to crawl forward. Frank held him gently. "I got you. We're going to walk out of here together." He looked over his shoulder, smiling at Caleb. "You did good today, soldier." Caleb smiled back. "We're a team, right?" "Damn right." Then a loud crack. The ground shifted. A low groan rolled through the rubble like thunder. Caleb's face fell. "Grandpa." Frank turned, just in time to see it. A slab of concrete above him. "I'm barely balanced. Starting to slide." "Grandpa." Caleb screamed. "Grandpa." Caleb's scream cut through the air like a siren. The concrete slab crashed down with a sickening crunch, a puff of dust, exploding into the air. Then silence. "Grandpa," Caleb whimpered, frozen. From beneath the heap came a groan. Frank's voice, ragged but alive. "I'm here, buddy. I'm okay." The boy dropped to his knees, tears already slipping down his cheeks. "I can't see you." "I know," Frank said calmly. His voice was slower, now labored. "It got my leg, but I'm still breathing." He looked to his side. The shepherd was pinned, too. Front legs free, back half stuck. They were trapped together. "Buddy," Frank said softly, reaching over and resting his hand on the dog's head. "Not the way I thought we'd walk out, but I'm not letting go of you now." The dog let out a soft, pained sound and laid his head against Frank's shoulder. "Grandpa," Caleb cried again. "I'm scared." Frank fought the weight of panic that tried to rise in his chest. That boy, his boy, needed him steady. "Hey," Frank called, voice clear despite the pain. "Listen to me, Caleb. Just like we practiced breathing before. Bedtime, remember?" Caleb nodded, hiccuping. "Inhale for 4 seconds. Hold. Now exhale. Can you do it?" The little boy wiped his nose and followed the rhythm. His breath slowed. "There you go," Frank said gently. "I need you to be my partner one more time." "Soldier," Caleb straightened up. "Okay. There's a market about 1 block down. You remember?" "Yeah. I need you to run there as fast as you can. Find a grown-up. Tell them everything. The building, me, the dog. Tell them we're stuck and we need help." "You think you can do that?" Caleb looked down at the wreckage, then back at the road. His bottom lip trembled. But what if you go to heaven while I'm gone? Frank closed his eyes for a second like he was holding back a wave. Then he smiled. Promise you I'll wait right here. Me and our friend, we're not leaving until you come back. Caleb took one step back, then another. Then he ran. His little legs moved faster than they ever had. His dinosaur toy bounced on the string. Behind him, forgotten now, he ran like every second was fire. The wind dried his tears as he turned the corner. The market came into view. A small local place with a red sign, Harris Groceries. He burst through the door, breath heaving, face smeared with dirt and panic. Behind the counter stood a woman in her 40s with reading glasses and a kind face. She dropped her coffee instantly. Sweetheart, are you hurt? No. But my grandpa, he's stuck in a building. And the dog too and the rocks. He said, call people. She came around the counter, kneeling. Okay, you did the right thing coming here. Hey, with me. She grabbed the store phone and dialed 911 with shaking fingers. This is Linda Harris at the corner of Eastwood and Pike. A little boy just ran. He says his grandfather's trapped under rubble from that demolition down the road. And a dog, too. He's 4 years old and he's terrified. Please send someone fast. Outside, Caleb paced. I need to go back. He said he'd wait for me. You will, Linda said gently, handing him a bottle of water. And you're going to bring help with you. It's braver than most grown-ups, I know. Back at the site, Frank was fading. The pain in his leg had gone numb, which he knew wasn't a good sign. Blood soaked his pant leg. His head was dizzy from dust and exhaustion. He reached over and stroked the dog's head. You held on, buddy, he whispered. You didn't quit. The shepherd's eyes blinked slowly. Still fighting, still there. You remind me of someone I knew once. Frank muttered. Young kid, lost in the middle of a bad night, but never gave. The dog let out a weak breath and nudged Frank's chest. We're not done yet, Frank whispered. That boy, he's coming back. I told him we'd wait. Just then, sirens, distant, growing louder. Frank's body sagged with relief. They're coming, he said, voice barely audible. The shepherd closed his eyes and leaned into his hand. And from around the corner, a small voice shouted, I found them. They're here. The beams groaned as the rescue team finally pulled the slab aside. We got him, someone shouted. Frank felt the sun on his face again, warm, bright, almost blinding after so much darkness. Hands wrapped around his shoulders, lifting, supporting, voices, shouting, coordinates and vitals. But he didn't care about any of it. Where's the dog? He mumbled, throat dry. He's next to you. One paramedic said, still breathing. We're taking you both out together. Frank reached over and touched the shepherd's paw. We made it, boy. We kept the promise. The dog blinked once, then closed his eyes, safe. At last, the world blurred into flashing red lights and antiseptic white. Frank woke up in a hospital bed hours later, bandaged, stitched, sore, but alive. Caleb was asleep on the chair beside him, one tiny hand still clutching Frank's weathered fingers. Linda, the store owner, stood at the foot of the bed. "Hey, soldier," she said softly. "You're one hell of a grandpa." Frank smiled faintly. "Where's the dog?" Animal Rescue took him to the 14th Street Vet Clinic. "He's banged up, but alive." "Good," Frank whispered, leaning back. "Real good." 2 days later, Frank walked with a slight limp into the vet clinic. The receptionist looked up, startled. "Mr. Davis?" "That's me," Frank said. "I'm looking for someone." She smiled, nodding. "Room 3. When Frank opened the door, he found him. The shepherd was lying on a soft blanket, front leg bandaged, tail giving a slow, soft thump when he saw Frank. "Hey, there, warrior," Frank whispered, crouching beside him. The dog tried to stand, but Frank put a hand gently on his back. "No need to prove anything. You already did." He scratched behind his ear, and the dog licked his wrist, like he'd been waiting for it since the day they met. Frank looked up at the vet. "What's the process to adopt him?" The vet smiled warmly. "He's all yours if you're serious. I've never been more." Week passed. Frank and Caleb stood in front of a small memorial plaque near the ruined building. It read, "To those who hear even the quietest cries for help." The dog, now named Valor, stood proudly beside them, leash held loosely in Frank's hand. "Can we tell the police now?" Caleb asked. Frank nodded. "We're not just rescuers, we're witnesses, too." 2 days later, Frank sat across from a local detective. He told the whole story, the voices, the laughter, the refusal to check the building. The detective frowned. Not the only one. Turns out a neighbor across the street had caught part of the demolition on their home security camera. The audio was clear. "Hey, I think there's a dog inside." "So what?" "He should have come out when we whistled. Hit the switch." "You serious? You think I'm going to jail for a mutt?" "Drop it." Boom. The footage went viral within 24 hours. Frank didn't post it, but someone did, and the internet roared. A month later, charges were filed against the demolition supervisor and 2 site workers for animal cruelty, reckless endangerment, and negligence. The courtroom was packed. Frank showed up, with Caleb and Valor by his side. When the verdict came down, guilty on all counts, Caleb whispered. "Does that mean we did something good?" Frank squeezed his hand. "It means we did something right." The judge allowed Valor to remain by Frank's side as his service dog companion in recognition of the emotional healing between man and animal. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. Frank gave only one statement. He cried and no one listened. "We didn't save a dog. We saved the part of us that still knows how to care." They could have walked away. They had every excuse. Too tired, too busy, just a dog.